All right, welcome back to episode 3 of how to build a budget in Google Sheets. If this is your first time with us, then you should probably go down into the description below and click on the link that's going to take you to episode number 1. Okay, so if you've made it this far, then I'm assuming you're pretty dedicated to this idea of this budget that we're making. And so what we are going to do now is we are going to get this comprehensive expense tracker all set up. I did want to do 2 other things before we did that. Up here in the running total, I want you to highlight that and just change it to some different background color. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just a good way to differentiate each row and what its purpose is. We'll talk more about that later. One other little tip I wanted to show you is if you don't like the way that I've ordered these things, you can actually change that. And it's not hard. I personally would rather have the ATM box underneath the credit card box. You can just highlight that box, come up here where you see the white hand symbol, and just drag the whole box out of the way. Then you can come up and grab this one, drag that one down a little bit, come grab this one again, drag it back up. There you go. And it looks like we lost a border there for some reason, but it keeps all the formatting and any formulas that you have. So if we were to move this one around, because this one had some of those formulas in it, it would keep those formulas and it would adjust the numbers appropriately. So you do have the ability and the freedom to move things around inside of the budget as much as you'd like to. Just thought I'd point that out to you as we're continuing on here. Okay, so to start off with our comprehensive expense tracker, let me explain what these different columns do. We have the spender column. This again only matters if you're married or have more than one person that you're involving in this budget. Basically, this column is who's going to spend the money. So for this example, let's just say it's Gideon. Kind of like how I mentioned over here, maybe you don't want to record who's spending how much. That might be something that causes conflict in your marriage. Again, that's totally up to you. My wife and I started this way. We started recording who was spending what, and now, 5 years later, we don't even care. It's like, it's my money is her money is my money. It doesn't matter. If it gets spent, it gets spent. That's totally up to you. Again, that's the nice thing about this budget is you get to run it however you want to. The amount column, of course, is how much money was spent. So let's say they spent $14. The date is when they spent it. And you remember from episode 1 where we formatted these to be currency and date. Now these 2 columns we are going to turn into drop-down menus. And if you remember what a drop-down menu looks like, if you come back here to our demo, it gives you all of these options with a little arrow next to it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So selecting just one of these cells, you could select all of them if you wanted to, but there's no reason to. So just select this one cell, come up to Data, Validation. What it's going to ask you for now is where are we pulling the information that we want in the drop-down menu. List from a range, and it's showing you that you can just select. So not pressing anything else, I'm just going to come up here and we're going to drag and select all of my envelopes. Don't select total because that's not an envelope. Okay, select all of your categories, and then on invalid data, select reject input. Basically what that's going to do is that if you accidentally enter in something wrong in the category box, it'll reject that input and give you an error message. Is what I would recommend you do. So make sure that you have a cursor inside that box, and as you click and drag, you should see this data popping up, C2 through S2, press OK, and now here in your range you're seeing C2 and S2. Ignore this, that was something that I did. And press save, and now in your drop-down menu you have all of the same categories in the same order as they're listed right there. Okay, so now that I have that set up, if I click and drag that down, you'll notice it's still there. So just select that cell, take it by the bottom right corner, and drag it all the way down. I, again, go all the way down to row 200. And now you'll see that each one of these cells has a full drop-down menu inside of it. We're going to do the exact same thing in payment method, data, validation, but this time, instead of selecting the list from a range of area like we did up here, I'm going to select list items, and I'm going to put in credit, debit, check, cash. with a comma in between each. You do not need a space. Reject input, press save. Credit, debit, check, cash. Grab it by the bottom right hand corner, slide it all the way down. Category and payment method both have a drop down menu. The explanation of expense is where you are going to write down what you were spending the money on. So let's say Gideon bought some Dungeons and Dragons dice from dieharddice.com. No, they're not sponsoring me. They just take really good care of me as a customer, so I thought I'd throw them some free advertising. So I would write in here dieharddice.com, and then you can format this again however you want to. I'm going to put in a couple dashes and then say, right, I bought the metal dice set, and now I have a record of what that expense was for. So Gideon spent $14 on the 6th. It was a gaming expense, so that's the envelope that money went into. And he paid with his debit card. And any additional notes that he wants to make, he can put right here. For example, a purchase order. So he puts in the purchase order number so that if there's ever any issues, he needs to return it or whatever, it's just a record. This is why we call this the comprehensive expense tracker. This is not just how much money was spent. This is who spent it, how much, what day, what envelope did the money come out of, how was it paid for, so that if you ever need to track down where your money is going, you have a record, where the money went, what specifically you purchased, and if there's ever any complications, you have a confirmation number. Again, the purpose of this budget is not to just be a what am I going to spend when. This is a full home finance tracker and planner. Okay, so what I've done is I've put in some additional hypothetical purchases for Gideon and Hazel, and just random numbers and dates and stuff like that, so that you can see how this then is going to work further. The reason that I highlighted this box yellow is that sometimes when I will use my credit card, there's a lag between actually swiping the card and my account registering how much was spent. And so I use just a yellow highlight box whenever there's some data missing or that I'm going to have to go back and get. So that's why that's yellow. Just wanted to show you that as an option. Now, if you look up here, the purpose of the running total row is to show how much money have we spent out of that envelope. So again, the rent up here, we allotted $725 for. We have spent the $725, therefore we have a balance of 0. We are going to set this up so that this running total adds up for us. We don't have to do this manually. It would suck if every time that you wanted to do your budget, you had to come down here and add up with a calculator manually. Oh, I spent 73 plus 20 in utilities, and then you have to come up here to utilities and put that in. There's a better way. So I'm going to show you that. And it is going to be all about the sum if function that we did over here with Gideon and Hazel. So come up here to rent in the running total cell, which is C5 on my screen, equal sum if, open parentheses, and again it's going to ask for what is the range in which we are going to look for the criteria. And we want to look for the category. So I'm going to select the entire range of the category. Takes me all the way down to row 200. That is the range. You're going to press the comma. So now the computer knows you're looking for the criteria. What are we looking for? We're looking for the word rent. Put it in quotation marks so that it knows it's looking for text. Press comma. And now it's asking, okay, so if in this cell we find the word rent, what are we going to do? Or rather, what numbers are we going to add? And you're going to look over here in column C. Click and drag, and then close the parentheses. And now we see up here in the formula bar, we have a sum if E11 through E200 has the word rent, then find the corresponding number and add it. Press enter, 725. You can test this to know if it worked by simply putting in a random arbitrary number for rent and seeing if it adjusts. It did, so we know that it is working. You're going to want to build one of these for each one of these categories. You don't have to do that manually though. There's a faster way. Let's just come up here to the formula bar. Again, I'm here in the running total of rent where we just put in that formula. Copy the formula. Do not just copy the cell. Okay, come up to the formula, copy the formula, Control C, and then I'm just going to put in each of these formula bars, paste, move over, paste, move over. I'm going to copy all of those in. And when you get down here to the end, don't put anything in the total, running total. We'll get to that in a second. You'll notice now that I have all of these that are saying 725 because in each cell it is the exact same formula. You can see that all the cells have the same formula. So all you have to do now is come to the PYF column and change that to PYF. Press enter, come to the grocery column, change that to grocery, press enter. Do this for each one of these columns. Now, if you're thinking, man, this is a lot of work. I just want to be able to know how much I'm spending. Trust me when I tell you that this amount of work is totally worth it. Once you get this set up, like this work that you're doing right now, once you get it set up, you'll be set for life. You only have to do this type of programming once, and then you will be able to perpetuate it throughout the rest of your life, essentially, as you continue this budget. Just a quick note, whatever is up here in the formula must be spelled the exact way that it is in this column. If this is spelled differently than this, the sum if function will not work properly. Okay, now come over here to the totals in cell T5, and all you're going to do here is turn this into a sum function. So just equals sum, open parentheses, drag all of these across, close parentheses, and press enter. You're just telling that cell to add everything in the cells of the running total. So now you know how much money you've spent. So right now what you can do is you can look at, okay, how much did we allot for rent and PYF and grocery and gas and tithing and date night and health and pets and career and blah, blah, blah. How much did we allot for all of this? And how much have we spent for all of that? So they allotted $3,000. They're now at $2,079. So they know that they have about $900 left to play with for this month. And it tells you so right there. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create more SUMIF functions for the credit, debit, check, and cash. Basically all we're going to do here is we want to have a record of how much money we're spending through which financial medium. So how much money are we spending on our credit card? How much money are we spending on our debit, with checks, and with cash? This is going to work the exact same way. You're going to put equals SUMIF, open parentheses. The range that we want to check is row F. What are we looking for in there? Well, this one is for credit, so we're going to look for the word credit. And if we see it, we're going to add whatever we find in for the C row. Pressing enter, we now see that we have the formula entered in correctly. It's saying right now that we have spent $83.08 using our credit card. If we wanted to just check that really quick, we have $73.09 right there and $9.99 right there. That would give us our $83.08. So we know that that's working. We're going to do that exact same thing for these ones. You can again just copy the formula, press escape to get out of it, then come over to the next cell, paste it in, and change the word to whatever you want. Having done that, we're going to click here and have this be a addition formula equals this cell plus that cell plus that cell plus that cell. Press enter. Anytime you see pound value like this, it's letting you know that you've done something wrong. You can hold your mouse over it to get an error, and it's telling me what I've done is I accidentally selected the cell comprehensive expense tracker. If I look up here in the formula, C9, E9, G9, B8. Oh, row 8 is where that is. So I can just come back up here. We need to delete that. Click that, which is I9, press enter, problem fixed. This number should always equal this number. These two numbers should be the same because everything that you're spending needs to go into an envelope up here. So this total gives you the total of all the money spent in your envelopes. This total gives you all the money that you spent out of your methods of payment. They must match or you're not keeping adequate record of your spending. Okay, so at this point, our comprehensive expense tracker is completely functional and set up. Go ahead and format it however you'd like to make it look nice. Okay, as I've been formatting this expense tracker, I wanted to also give you another little tip on how to make things look nice in a faster way. I like having the different rows slightly different colors. It makes reading things easier, it makes comprehending a lot of data more friendly to the eye, at least it does for me. One way you can do that, of course, the slowest way of doing that is you highlight the row, then you come up here to the fill and you select your color, and then you go to the next one. You could do that manually, or you could go to the next one and then hit Control Y, which again, or Command Y, which is again allows you to repeat the previous command, and you could do that manually, but you've got 200 rows in this area, and that's going to take you a long time. So just highlight these last two where there's one white row and one alternate colored row. And then come up here to this big paintbrush called Paint Format. What this is going to do is this is going to tell the computer, hey, you see what's inside this highlighted area that I've selected? However I've formatted that, I want you to repeat that over the area that I tell you to. Like a big rolling wheel, you can paint a lot more faster than with a little paintbrush. So I've selected this, I'm going to come up and hit Paint Format, and you'll notice that it stays darkened, letting me know that it is ready to go and that this box has dashed lines on the edge. And then I'm going to select everything else, click and drag all the way down throughout the rest of the table, and let go. And it has now done that exact same formatting that it saw in these two cells across all of the cells, all the way down. So it's a way to reformat a large area based on a small area. Just a tip there. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come back here to this monthly bills table that I told you that we were going to work on. The time has come. We're now going to do that. The purpose of this table is to keep a record of which bills we have paid, so as to make sure that we don't accidentally forget to make a payment on a bill and have late charges and hurt our credit score. You could do that manually. You could, every time you come in to do your budget, you can come over here and be like, oh yeah, I paid that. Oh yeah, I paid that, and do that manually. But I think there's a better way. I've never actually done this in my budget. It just occurred to me the other day, so we're going to try it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do in order to make this work, we're going to have to play a little bit of a trick here. You may choose to watch me do this first and decide if it's worth the effort to you. I like the idea of this working and me not working, and so I'm going to put in a little bit of extra effort at the start in creating this so that later I can work less. It reminds me of that 1 marshmallow versus 2 marshmallows psychological study that was performed on children. Do I want what I want right now, or do I want to wait and get what I want, which is better, later? If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to put a link down in the description. It is a huge study on financial management and financial success. Okay, so in order for this to work, the first thing we have to do is we have to create a COUNTIF function. Equals COUNTIF. Open. What this is doing is you're telling the computer, hey, I want you to count something. Just how many of these do you see? You're basically telling the computer, count how many times something happens. Count if, and it's again asking for a range, just like the sum if range, what area are we going to be looking in? So I'm going to highlight this entire explanation of expense, all the way down to the bottom, of course, and now I'm telling it to look in this entire range, press comma, that's what you need to tell the computer. What is it looking for? And I'm going to put in quotations Centricom, because Centricom is who he pays for his internet. And when he comes in here and he puts his explanation of expense for utilities for the internet, he puts Centricom. So I'm going to put in the criteria, we're looking for the term Centricom. Close parentheses, press enter. And it returns the number 1. Why is it returning the number 1? Because what the computer is doing is it's looking through G11 through J200, G11, J, all the way down to row 200. It's going to look through all of these cells for the word Centricom. And anytime that it sees it, it's going to count. So here's exactly what the computer does. It goes, no, 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 1, no, 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 and then it goes all the way down. It's like, and then it's like, okay, out of all that range, we saw 1 Centricom. So it puts that there. Boom, you're done. Do that for each of these. How exactly you're going to word that is totally up to you, and this is where you're going to have to figure out your own style. What I mean by that is, perhaps in paying your phone bill, you come in, right, and you put telly ring ring is your phone provider or whatever, and that's how it's going to show up on your bank statement. So you put telly ring ring phone bill. So maybe next month, in February, you come in here and the next time you're typing it up, you're like, cell phone stuff, right? If you're not consistent with it, then it's going to have a hard time counting it. So you have to be consistent with the way that you record your spending in order for this to work. So for garbage, he pays to NS disposal. So if you were to come in here, again, it would be a count if through here, and we're looking for the word, let's just put disposal. Okay, let's see if this works. We didn't put NS disposal. We just put the word disposal. Nope, that didn't work. So it's looking for cells that have the exact text disposal. And this does not have the exact text disposal. It has NS disposal. So if we were to come up here and punch NS in there with a space, now it works. So in order for this system to work, you have to be consistent in the way that you label your expenses. So let's say you do that for each of these. You come up with a system that is effective for you. You're always going to list that expense in that way. If that doesn't sound like something you're actually going to be able to do, then you can ignore this. I like the idea of the computer working for me rather than me working at the computer. So you go through and put up one of these on each of these. Now what do? You're going to come over here to where we want the checkbox to be, and we're going to create an if-then function. It's another one of those functions where we're telling the computer, if you see something, then I want you to do something else. It's going to look like this. Equals if, open parentheses, and since we're talking about the internet, we're going to say if this cell, L26, equals 1. This is the logical expression that the computer is looking for. You're telling the computer if L26 equals 1, comma, then. And so you'll notice here it's highlighting value if true. In other words, if you see L26 equaling 1, then what do you want me to do? Says the computer. What do you want me to do if L26 equals 1? And we're going to say, put in an X. You have to put it in quotation marks because X by itself means nothing. It's not a text symbol until you put it in quotations. So I'm going to say put in an X, comma. Now it's asking, what do you want me to do if L26 does not equal a 1? So again, the computer is coming in saying, if L26 equals 1, what do you want me to do? And what do you want me to do if it doesn't equal 1? In which case, I'm just going to put 2 quotation marks. By putting in 2 quotation marks with nothing in between them, that means the cell is going to remain blank. Close parentheses. We have now finished the formula. One more time, because I know this can be very confusing. Here's what we're saying with this formula. If L26 is over here, that's this cell, you're telling the computer if L26 equals 1, comma, and we're telling it we want you to put in the letter X. You have to put it in quotations. Or if you wanted, you could have it say done, or whatever you wanted. That's totally up to you. And then again, it's going to say, okay, but if it doesn't equal 1, what do you want me to do? And that's what you're going to do after the second comma right here. And in this case, we want it to be blank, or you could have it say unpaid or pending or whatever you want to do. And that's again why I'm teaching you these formulas. You get to format this budget however you want. So this is how Gideon wants it. We're going to just press enter, and you'll notice that it puts an X there. This was for the internet. Watch what happens. And remember, the formula that this count is looking for is the word Centricom. So if I come up here and just delete one letter, that drops to a 0 and that X goes away. If I come back in here, put that M back, 1, X. So the idea here is you can set up your monthly bills tracker to automatically look through your expense tracker to see if you have paid your bills. And if you haven't, you can come back in here and make it say whatever you want it to say. So yeah, we paid our bills, but if we delete that, hey loser, pay your bills. The idea here is these 2 tables, your monthly bills and your expense tracker, will now talk to each other, and you can use this as a way to make sure that you're paying all of your bills. Now, I personally don't like just a couple little ones floating out over here. For the record, you can put this cell anywhere. You could move this all the way down here if you wanted to, and it would still work. It would still function. However, it makes sense to me to have them just parked right there if I ever needed to find the formula again, if I ever needed to be able to adjust it. But I don't want to see those ones. I think they don't fit in with the aesthetic of the budget. And so I'm just going to highlight those and turn them white. And now you don't have to see them. You know they're there. You click there and you can still see the formula. So it's there, but you don't have to see it. So now you just have to remember that you don't touch this column because there's hidden formulas inside of it. Okay, so having gone through all of that now, you may decide, that's just too much work. It takes me 2 seconds to come in here and check the box. Yeah, it does, but in my personal opinion, the more work that it takes you to run this budget, the less likely you are to do it. So put in the work now so that the budget is easier to run in the future and you're more likely to actually use it. The fact is, running a budget is much more about discipline and self-control than it is actually about planning and money smarts. Okay, I think that's a good place to stop for this episode. When we come back for episode 4, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you conditional formatting. I'm going to show you how to make boxes change their color depending upon the material or values that are inside of it. That's going to be handy for helping the budget to communicate with us more easily. For example, these cells turning green or yellow or red, I didn't tell them to be that color, they did it automatically. So I'm going to show you how to set that up. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to perpetuate 1 month's of budget, month after month after month, year after year after year. And then if we have time, I'm going to show you how to set up an annual summary page so that you can see an entire year's data on one screen. Hope to see you there.